Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. So, Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining. Inshallah, as usual, I'll be requesting those of you who are joining to start sharing, inshallah. And today's topic, obviously, is going to be a slightly kind of, you can say, a difficult topic from an angle that this is a very key topic for those individuals who want to go into consulting, who want to know more about ERPs, who want to know exactly what is cloud ERP, this new fad which came, a few years ago, exactly what is happening within the industry, within the ERP space, where do actually most of the ERPs rank in terms of, for example, the bigger ones and the smaller ones, etc. So before I do that, before I start, start actually introducing the speakers, once again, I would be requesting all of you to kind of start sharing, please, so that we, inshallah, engage as much audience as we can. So now I'll be making, inshallah, a formal start. So in alhamdulillah nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone, once again. So we have, mashallah, have the honor to be having two very, very old colleagues of mine. One goes back, maybe even 30 years, Ahsen. And then we have, mashallah, Riz, who was my colleague at SAP, mashallah, for a number of years, again, a few years back. So a bit of introduction to the panelists today. So Ahsen, Javed, he's a chartered accountant by profession, and basically he was involved with Ferguson's PwC for a number of years before he moved to Oracle Corporation in the ASEAN region and having the head office within Pakistan. And then beyond that, he was the managing director of Oracle Corporation for around, I think, again, 7 to 10 countries, looking after some of the smaller segment of the SAARC countries, excluding India. And then 4 years back, like he corrected me a while back, mashallah, he started his own company, which is called Keystone Consulting. He's a happily married father of two beautiful children, mashallah, and we'll be discussing more in a while. So we also have Riz Khan, mashallah, again, a wonderful guy, goes, a long way back, mashallah. He's basically been working out of UK and Europe, and then you can say roughly, I think, between 6 to 8 years ago, he started kind of doing consulting and training kind of work within the Middle East region. This is where kind of we met together when we were working together at SAP MENA. And now, mashallah, he's stationed out of the Qatar SAP office in Qatar for the last 6 years, where he is the VP of pre-sales training and development. So this is the introduction to our speakers, mashallah. So let's, inshallah, start with our panelists. So, Ahsen, I'll start with you quickly. If you can speak a little bit about your current venture, and also if you can delve a little bit about how you started your ERP journey and how did you come to where you are today.
Right. Nohis, thank you, and welcome, Riz. Good to know you. And Assalamu alaikum to everyone who are watching and who are listening. Well, my ERP journey goes back, I think, around the same time it happened for you, Nohis. So it's around 20 years now that I'm into ERP. For those of us who are listening to this and hearing this and who are not into IT, I can tell them if they have interest in IT, in the enterprise applications, I'm a good example of having a non-IT education and then later on moving into the enterprise IT space. So by education, I'm a chartered accountant who then moved into ERP consulting. So I'm doing it for 20 years now. It's been very rewarding. I think it happens to everyone, every individual who is, who's studying somewhere, who is starting his early job, that, you happen to see your true calling. So in my case, I was doing my articles in A.F. Ferguson, PricewaterhouseCoopers Lahore. and I had done my audits and my taxation work and some part of the management consulting work. Towards the last year of my studentship, I got this opportunity to work on ERP as well, and I think that was a whole new world for me, and that's where I decided that I'll not go into financial management or other areas. I will pursue my career into ERPs, and Alhamdulillah, it has been very rewarding. When I look back, I only smile at what I could do for customers, for the teams that I was part of, and the teams that I was able to lead. And along the way, the lessons I could learn for myself, they have made me a better person, a better professional. And Nohez, you have touched upon that part of the introduction. Let me tell you a little bit about our recent venture. It's called Keystone Consulting, and it's a startup. It's a 4 years young startup, and we actually do what we do best. It's actually the cloud ERP. And I'm sure we'll discuss a little bit about different cloud technologies, including the cloud ERP as the discussion goes forward. But Keystone is a focused cloud ERP implementer and support provider. We are already, while we are a young company, we're only a 30 people team. We are already the largest SaaS cloud ERP provider, service provider in Pakistan with 18 customers. And we are a 30 people team. These 18 customers are based in 7 different cities in 3 different countries. And it's getting better and better for us, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's excellent. MashaAllah. Riz, can you speak a little bit about your journey, please?
Yeah, sure. So let me start first by giving Salamu alaikum to everybody. Thank you for joining us, and I'm very pleased to meet you too. So I'll work the other way around. So my current role, I work for SAP, which is the second or third largest software company from a business perspective in the world. I'm currently the vice president of training and enablement. We also just changed our names to training and adoption for the last, I'd say, 4 years. And prior to that, I've been with SAP now for 10 years. It feels like I would say at least 100 years, quite easily. But I've enjoyed every single moment. And I've worked with many, many different teams. Currently, I look after the region of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And up until COVID-19, I was traveling and spent most of my life in a plane in many different hotels in many different cities, as both of you know quite well as well. So my journey has been quite amazing because I've worked with some of the largest organizations in the world, some of the most complex organizations in the world, some of the most cutting edge organizations in the world. And I work in the learning and development area, the training and development as well, innovation, all the cutting edge technology. It's been quite a brilliant, informative journey for me. Prior to SAP in my life, I was a consultant, again, contracting various different large corporations. I was also before that a project manager, and have many, many wounds. You can't see them, but trust me, I have many wounds in it from the project space. I saw many projects fail. I saw many projects be a full success. And you know what? I'm really, really excited to be on this show and to be able to give my experience and share it and really tell you the great things about doing your own business, which I dabbled in before my career started as well. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, Riz. May Allah, inshallah, put barakah in whatever you do, wherever you are. Continue to put, inshallah, you continue to live a healthy life, inshallah. Now, Ahsen, what is an ERP? For the audience now, the new joiners, what is an ERP? If someone wants to start a career in ERP, how would you define it?
Right. So very quickly, ERP basically it's it's one of the technologies out there. Depending upon the audience, I think some of the audience here would know IT, some would not know IT. So broadly speaking, there is an IT for consumers, something that we all use, the iPhones and mobile phones and the laptops and Microsoft Office applications, all of that, Androids and iOS. So this is the IT for consumers, and then there's an IT for businesses. And the IT for businesses encompasses various technologies. Some of you would have heard, and I'll try to make sure that we stay away from the jargons as much as we can, so that the discussion is very understandable. So the IT for businesses, while it has various technologies, uh, ERP is actually the backbone of every business enterprise which is out there. So that is one. The other thing is that I'll explain it a little further. That every business has various processes, and those processes are depicted in the form of departments. So once you deal with a company, you're either dealing with their marketing department, or you're dealing with their supply chain, people belonging to the supply chain, or if you are a student and now you are entering into an internship, and if you are applying somewhere, chances are your application will end up in their HR department, right? So these different departments, they depict their business processes. And what does an ERP technology do? It automates and it integrates all those business processes into one application, under one database. There can be more than one databases, but usually one database. And this means that the information which is captured by one department, again, building further on the example of an intern making an application, that data, which is captured by the HR department, is later on used by, let's say, the finance department for processing the payroll, is later on used by some sales department for rehiring. So the idea is that IT deals with, it's a technology that deals with information, and we live in an information age, and the largest asset that everybody has, every corporation, every individual, is actually the information. And ERP is the backbone of managing that information as best as we can. So that's a little bit about ERP. Delving further on to Nohe's what you said, if you are into technical domains of IT, definitely ERP is one of the technologies out there. You can go over there. But if you are not into IT, like myself, if you are into finance or you're doing business studies, and still you have a knack for business processes, and you feel that and you feel that the language of business, you can speak that language, and you can automate that processes and that language, and you can improve upon that. If that is one part of your personal strategy, that ERP is the place where you can go. It's very open field. Anybody can join in, like myself.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Ahsen, for that. Now, Riz, where do we see the current ERP landscape? Obviously, it depends from kind of company to company, from solution to solution, from software to software. But from kind of a technical to a layman perspective, where do we see it currently?
So before I answer that, I'm just going to go back a little bit, and I'm from training development, so I'm gonna train these people, inshallah. So let's start with ERP. Stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. The easiest way to explain, when a lot of my family asks me, what is this ERP business? What is this? So trying to explain to them exactly what it is. So the easiest way to put it into a perspective is to say, for example, I have a mobile phone shop that sells fascias and SIM cards. And I've got 3 or 4 different shops. And here, especially in the Middle East where I'm based, there are many, many mobile phone shops on every single corner. And most of these don't use a system. Most of it is done by gut feel. The business is done by gut feels, by putting a finger in the air and saying, right, we need to buy this product, I need to do this. They have 3 or 4 people working for them. They're not really sure where when one is sick, when one is going to go on holiday, et cetera, et cetera. And really, exactly what Ahsen said, ERP is the system that you need if you're going to go into business, whether you like it or not. You need it to go into business to manage your business. So the example of an ERP would be in my mobile phone shop. What I would be able to do, for example, with an ERP is sell online. So that now goes from this main street that I've been selling to a whole audience worldwide. Next thing that happens is I'm able to track any delivery that I send, which I couldn't do before. So I can track my delivery. I have a record of all my staff, and I know when they're going to be off, or if they're sick, or if they need to leave and they got appointments. I can manage all of this. I can manage my stock now, and I don't need. I mean, I've walked into mobile phone shops where all the covers are blue, just because the owner loves the color blue. And again, it gives you data so that you can look at the data and say, you know what, my best selling color is red, and it's not blue, and I need to be investing more in this. Yeah. And avoid having a room full of blue sort of fascias and everything else. So this is what ERP is. So if you've never heard of it, I really ask you to go out there and investigate what it's all about. And if you're thinking of any form of business, you need ERP. And I would say, because I've seen so many organizations fail because they don't understand what it is, or they only use one part of it. And Ahsen, we've been there, we've got the battle scars. So I would recommend that this is something you do. Where are we now with ERP? So ERP really kicked off in like the 70s, around the late 70s, when the computers started to really come into the manufacturing space. And it was really just looking after data, right? That's all it was. Financial data, financial transactions, and business processes. And it's really evolved. And now we're in the industry, what we call the fourth industry, which is really the interconnected world. And we are now using things like cloud. And an example of this is I no longer have any files on my laptop or on my phones. Everything is in the cloud. So I use OneDrive and I use Google Drive, and everything is there. And this is the way ERP is going as well. It's going more towards the cloud. Before, there was a heavy reliance of the software being on premise, but it also depends on the development of the country. So I work a lot in Africa, where they struggle in some countries with the internet. So using the cloud. So my advice to you is, if you are going to go into business, or if you're thinking of going into the space of IT, you need to know the cloud business, and you need to know preferably SAP, and not so much Oracle, which is former Ahsen. We're going to have this bit of banter. But no,
that is the reason I brought both of you here.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, the technology now is moving towards the cloud and interconnectivity, right? So this is, the one platform, multi-vendor, multi sort of people working on their collaborative with live chat and all these type of things. I'm working with beautiful apps now. There's none of this complex 3 hour. You got to learn a book to try and understand what you need to do. Now it's all easy, just like you've got an Apple phone, etc. So this is where it's going. And my recommendation is, if you love your IT and you're passionate about it, get into it. And I'd be more than happy, and so would Ahsen, and even Noches would be more than happy to guide you on this, inshallah.
Yeah. So basically, guidance from my perspective is this. Having worked both in SAP and Oracle, I would say I have moved over to a third ERP now. Yeah. So let's not go there. Okay, no, just kidding, guys. Okay. So basically, thanks a lot, Riz, for that. Now, Ahsen, obviously there are so many areas from a product perspective. We can look from an SAP perspective, we can look from an Oracle perspective. There is a product management domain, there's a training domain, there's a database domain, there's an administration domain. You name it. It literally now, obviously ERP space is now heavily moving into even AI, machine learning, etc. So right. It actually touches the complete spectrum of technology, whatever you can think about, mobile devices, interfaces with even assets, which are being maintained at the plant sites, etc. So you name it, and it's there. Now, right now, for example, if I look at it from a Pakistan angle, because obviously a lot of our audience is based out of Pakistan and the Middle East. And Riz, I would request the same for you from a Middle East angle. What are the kind of the niche areas in product management where you see a gap, where you see young budding entrepreneurs actually can play a role? They can come in a product development management capacity, where there are niche areas but untapped. Where do you see the potential?
Right. Thank you, Nohez. I think where the potential lies in case of Pakistan is the so I'll further develop on the cloud part, which Riz also mentioned. Um, where the Pakistani marketplace is now heading, and even for the budding entrepreneurs, and even for the students who will now enter the workforce in future years. I think the major domain is now going towards SaaS, software as a service cloud, and that's an area where there's a lot of potential for, even if you are a product developer. So from a product management perspective, from a deployment perspective, SaaS, is way away from the maturity standpoint. So you find many applications which are on SaaS, but then at the same time, you find a lot of business processes, a lot of functionalities which are not there in SaaS yet. And for, let's say, for somebody who is a product developer, my advice will be, for in the Pakistani context, is not to develop something which is not SaaS ready. They should actually adopt the SaaS platform, software as a service platform, and should develop anything and everything in SaaS. Whether they want to later on integrate with an ERP, or they want to integrate it, or they want to further develop extensions around some technology, be it SAP, Oracle, or something else, they should actually do it in SaaS. So that is one from a cloud angle. And from a Pakistani perspective, the other area, and I think Nohez, you touched upon that, is actually in the emerging technologies. And I think it's more to do with the, I would say, budding entrepreneurs, that you have to find your niche, because Pakistan is not a very big market. And the way to operate in Pakistan successfully, and I would say probably around the world also, is not to compete with the existing well-established businesses. So if you are doing something which there are, five smart companies, well-established, 1,000 people on board, and if they are doing the same, you won't be able to, make a cut. So my advice will be, and with SaaS cloud, even actually in IT, there's always the next best technology which is coming up. So you don't really need to stick to what is being what's in practice today. You should look into the future, what is going to come up. Easier said than done, but then there's a lot of mentorship, there's a lot of vibe, and if you are an avid reader, you will know what is going to happen. So instead of working on a technology which is sunsetting, my advice will be, then try to distinguish by joining a new technology wave, a new information wave, rather than something which is already there, which is now getting dated. If you look at current numbers, the sunsetting technology will be a very huge number. So speaking of Pakistan, and again restricting myself to cloud, the on-premise customers in Pakistan, both SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, ACPAC, Sage, there are at least 3,000 businesses in Pakistan who are using these applications. Speaking of cloud, not even 50, right?
So
Not even,
okay.
right? So no comparison, no comparison. But then these 3,000 companies, they are making their next investments into cloud, not into the on-premise, right? So my advice to budding entrepreneurs is that, pick a niche, don't do what is being done today, and distinguish yourself rather than compete. Same message, is to Pakistani students who are into technology, or are into other disciplines and want to move into technology, that they should go for the emerging tech. There's a lot of opportunity in blockchain, AI, ML, data science, all of that. And these technologies are very nascent. Um, if a student, just reads a book about it, does a pilot project, he knows as much blockchain as I do, right? So it's a very level playing field. And a lot can be achieved for budding entrepreneurs and for new entrepreneurs.
MashaAllah, brilliant. That's very concisely put. Riz, same kind of the niche areas for new entrepreneurs. Where are the kind of the niches there?
So I always say, find your passion. So you're going to be passionate about something. Find your passion. Build a product, an app or something, and sell it as a service. Full stop. Nothing else. An example. If you take a simple example of my AirPods cover, for example, there's two ways you can look at this. You can just sell it as a product, or you can sell it that I can take it away. Just as an example, every month you pay me $20, and I will come and I will clean it. And at the end of the year, you pay a small fee, and I'll exchange it for a new one. These type of things. I mean, little simple things like this. Now, one of the things that I do a lot of is ponder about the future and think about what's going on currently. So if we look at in 2001, so this is what almost 20 years ago, all the top companies were oil companies or large finance companies. Yep. Now, if we go, even let's say like 2000 and 2006, we still had the oil companies and banking, and we maybe had Microsoft there. Microsoft has always been there, right? And now, if we look at maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe we still had some oil companies. Then we started getting companies like Apple. We started getting companies like Google, etc. Now, currently, if you look at what the industry or the impact of digitalization, all the top companies, Apple, Alphabet, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and all of these companies are there now in the top. Gone are the oil companies. And all of these guys are investing into the new emerging technologies. And there is a document out there by Gartner. Guys, I really recommend that you look at this document, Gartner, and it's called the Hype Cycle. And this is all about the hype cycle, and this is all about the emerging technologies that are coming. So, for example, we've all heard about AI, and we've all heard about the digital twin. We've all heard about the type of different printing solutions that we have now, and we've heard of augmented reality, mixed reality, 3D. We've got it all now. And this is the type of technologies that all these top companies are working on. So Microsoft has just released, for example, a set of glasses, and they've also got some screens called HoloLens, which you can mix augmented reality and bring things in front of you and do things with your hand. Amazing technology. Okay. And this is the type of stuff that we should invest in and we should look at. And what you've got to remember is from a learning perspective, we're becoming dumber. Really, we are becoming dumb, and our lives are becoming automated. Example, take telling the time. Years ago, way before we were all born, they used to put a stick in the ground, and they used to be able to tell you what the time is. Easy. Yeah. Now, then what happened is someone invented a clock that had an arm going two ways, and you could tell the time. Then you have to try and work out the big hand is up here, the small hand is here. Then you got a digital clock. And then, so it removed working out, you just read it. Now, you just ask Siri what the time is and she tells you, right? It's as simple as that. So, cognitive skills are getting less and less. Technical skills are getting more and more. And this is somewhere that you really need to invest in as well. So if you don't increase your technical skills, then you're not going to get very far. So this is my advice is, really invest yourself into technology, think about the emerging technology and build that service. Honestly, there's some amazing opportunities to go to. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, mashallah. I think excellent from both the guests. Now, Ahsen, coming back to cloud space. Now, from an Oracle perspective, I'll ask Riz from an SAP perspective. From an Oracle perspective, where do you see Oracle investing in the cloud space? And where do you see actually having most of the customers kind of coming in? Which products are coming on Oracle Cloud?
Right. So no, his in the from an Oracle standpoint, because I was part of Oracle for 9 years, and my company is still focused on Oracle SaaS products, both for the enterprises and for the mid-size sector. Oracle is a very, I would say, very disruptive company by nature, and I have seen it when I was part of that organization. Um, it's a large behemoth, one of the largest enterprise IT company, but the agility with which it operates is actually very interesting. So something which will classify as a big change within Oracle, it's relatively my feel is that it's relatively easier to go through that process, and they would change stuff every second year, every third year. So very quickly, from a purely a database company to a major ERP player to provider of various industry solutions to acquiring hardware company like Sun and supplying the world's best and the first engineered systems to the cloud. So this is the journey, if you allow me to summarize for Oracle. Started as a database, now is a cloud company. And speaking of cloud, and if we slice and dice cloud between the SaaS and the platform and the infrastructure space, SaaS is where all the cloud companies started. And we should give the credit where it is due. It was not the Oracles and Microsofts of the world, and I think that's and the SAPs of the world. And I think that's a message again for the budding entrepreneurs and for the aspiring students, that the innovation and the next big innovation, disruptive innovation, it did not come from these large giant corporations. It
Correct.
came from the small startups.
Yeah.
People who left colleges and started on a brand new idea. They started the cloud companies 20 years back. So it's not a new technology. Salesforce, for example, was born in the cloud. NetSuite, for example, was born in the cloud. So these were the people who started small, but now have very large cloud businesses. Oracle along the way adopted it, and they felt that it makes a lot of sense to offer all Oracle applications and the technology products over the cloud rather than on premises, because it's a major disruption which is happening everywhere. Every industry is being disrupted, and to be honest, our own industry has gone out and disrupted many industries like telcos, for example. IT has disrupted telcos, banks, and so many other industries. But our own industry is being disrupted through the cloud and through the
Correct.
emerging technologies. So Oracle's core focus, and so is the Keystones, core focus is on the SaaS cloud, and followed by the platform and infrastructure services. Oracle is a major player in the SaaS area. They're the largest SaaS ERP provider, but Oracle is a very small
Well, Riz doesn't seem to agree with you.
in the platform and the infrastructure area. Where Oracle's core focus is actually in line with how the customers are adopting. For example, Oracle has not been into the mid-market space until they acquired NetSuite. So with the NetSuite acquisition, Oracle is right at the center of the mid-market applications, and NetSuite is again the largest SaaS ERP provider in the mid-market space. And by the way, and to Riz's credit, SAP was actually into the mid-market way ahead, way earlier
The
than
business one and all that.
SAP Business One and some of the A1 and other products. But Oracle was not. So Oracle has been an enterprise player throughout until they acquired NetSuite. So what Oracle is doing with the Fusion applications, which is tailored toward the large enterprises, all the install base of Oracle and other customers from NetSuite who are actually coming up into the large and the enterprise scale, there are applications and upgrade paths available for all of that. And the good thing is that, and that's the reason Keystone doesn't do on-premise anymore. Uh, as an implementer and as a support provider, my job becomes easier. It's easier for me to deliver value to customer
Yeah.
with a SaaS application versus an on-premise application.
Agreed. Agreed.
And it's a different view of how to do consulting. Under on-premises, a lot of focus and effort will go towards infrastructure also. In cloud, of course, there will be
That's
none.
not the case. Yeah.
Will be taken care by the cloud provider. Um, what is also different in case of cloud is that a lot of focus now shifts away from processes because when the on-premise applications were built, world was literally not automated, right? Now there is a decent level of automation in every organization that we deal with. So the focus is now on data, less on processes, more on data. And that also reflects in the implementation approach also. So as opposed to the typical whole scale implementation approach, we now use a lightweight implementation approach with these finer lessons learned along the way. And through that, my experience is that we now can deliver more value to customers. That is one part. The other part, Nohes and Riz, is that customers, the dollar value is the biggest value for customers, right? And when they are about to do a hardware refresh, when they are about to upgrade their on-premises systems, the bill that they still get, even today, versus the OPEX model that they get from a cloud provider. It's
Yeah,
like
it's a massive difference. Yeah, yeah.
for customers
Yeah.
to understand. So
Correct.
better
No, Jazakallah khair.
technology, better dollar terms, yeah.
Yeah. So Riz, coming to you now from an SAP perspective. Obviously, where do you see exactly SAP playing? Because SAP was quite late in the game, to be frank. I was part of SAP when the relevant announcements were being made, but So where do you see SAP now in the cloud space?
I see SAP also leading in the cloud space. So they've we have a solution called S/4HANA Cloud, which is in-memory computing in the cloud, which is a lot faster and really cool. And we're investing a lot in that, and we are winning over our customers. And there was a challenge to try and convince customers to leave their on-premise solutions and go to the cloud, and you'll always get these issues. Plus, it also geographically depends where the customer is, and there's some misconceptions about the cloud, etc. But this is an area. But one of the other areas that we are really, really looking at is in the innovation space. So we're really trying to become disruptive. And again, there are 4 or 5 areas that we really are looking at in more detail. So we have an area called SAP Leonardo. And SAP Leonardo is an area that looks at topics like the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is where everything is connected. As an example, I have a fridge. It's hooked up to the wireless internet, and the moment the sensor feels that my milk is running out, it automatically contacts the local store that then deliver the milk. Now, this is the Internet of Things, and this is the age that we're currently living in now. The other thing then is machine learning, and a lot of people get confused with what machine learning is. The easiest example is if you watch Netflix or YouTube. The moment you watch one Jackie Chan movie, every single Jackie Chan movie then is rammed in front of you and say, look at this Jackie Chan movie. This is machine learning. It's learning how you behave and operate, and it's giving you information at the same time. And this is something that we should also be looking at from a learning perspective. Then you have blockchain, and Ahsen covered that, where companies now are no longer going down these big routes. They got their own ways of doing things. There's the analytics side of things. People love analysis. They're crazy about analysis and analytics and looking at reports and big data, data mining. I mean, if any of you like data, this is an area for you to get into. And the other one then is artificial intelligence. For me, that is my favorite space. And this is, if you look at Tesla, the car companies, Volvo, all of these companies now are coming up with these self-driving vehicles and all of these things. And AI has got a lot of ways to go. So, I see SAP as well focusing in this area as well as its core business, which is the SAP Cloud. So definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Great. Now, Riz, just kind of coming back to you, you've mentioned kind of the cloud at the end with regards to certain aspects of artificial intelligence. Now, when from your perspective, from your background in training and education, I do believe that the training opportunities within the cloud space will be less rather than how they were in the on-premise space. I might be incorrect. Please, correct me if I'm wrong, because of the ease of use of the cloud, number one, and because of the kind of the e-learning and online training opportunities instead of a kind of a 1-to-1 or 1-to-12, a full-fledged training room and having everyone in there and then training them, months and months on end as we used to do with the on-premise solutions. So how do you see kind of the training? Do you see niche in the training space? For example, if someone wants to start up a training education cloud company, do you see any niche there?
So definitely, I mean, a lot of people in the industrial time, when there was an industrial revolution, people were like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to have any jobs," and the man with a horse and cart was going to lose his job to a thing that had 4 wheels, and then when the manufacturing space came in, everybody was like, "Well, they don't need me anymore to pick up these things," and do the farming. These machines came in, and likewise, people started making noise. I'm not going to have a job. And when computers came in, so this always happens. What happens? Yeah. We, as insans, as humans, evolve, right? So I'll give you an example. If I ask the audience, all of you, to close your eyes, and I'm your pilot. So you've just joined. I'm from Britain, so you've just sat on British Airways, and I'm the pilot. And I say to you all, then you close your eyes, and I say, "Hey, thank you for joining British Airways flight number XXXY. My name is Riz Khan, and I'm your pilot this evening. Just to let you know, I've done 12,000 hours of e-learning on how to fly a plane. And this is my first actual attempt. I think you'd have a very, very uncomfortable flight." Huh? I know I would, right? So there,
nice way
there's
to
a
put
difference. It's an easy, there's a huge difference, right? So yes, we're going towards the cloud, but business is transactional based. And you need to know transactions, you need to know your business processes, you need to know the legal side, policies and procedures, you need to know, it's not just about here's a manual or let's go and do some training. What's changing is the brain, right? So we're going from e-learning now to e-reference. How many people do you know that want to learn a new skill they learn from YouTube? Right? It's e-referencing. It's not, with the aims and objectives, and by the end of this course for 1 hour, you have to watch a video. It's none of that anymore. You just learn how to do something and you do it. So learning is evolving. Like I said earlier as well, the brain is evolving. We're relying less on our brain now. We just get told, like, I just want a GPS. What does it do? It says, go left, go right? No longer looking at a map. No longer trying to memorize where you are, right? So, learning has a big future. So if you're thinking of that space, that's where you need to be going, is into learning and development, because people will always need to be learning, and they will always need to develop themselves. And so there's a huge space there. You can create apps, you can do gamification, so make complex business scenarios simpler, into games. Yeah, exactly. So this is a type of space that we're going to.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Riz. Now, Ahsen, Riz obviously has mentioned the policies and the procedures. Here, I think we can kind of slightly digress, not exactly fully from the topic, but where do you see kind of the consulting, the pure consulting space of policies, procedures linking into an ERP space? How do you kind of match up the two? Because, for example, the people, kind of the students specifically, and even the entrepreneurs, the big four obviously, are renowned for kind of the policies and procedures and the management consulting space, but also from a career perspective and also for new entrepreneurs. The biggest pain point for me always has been, if you want to do a startup as a management consultant, then because it's a service, it's very hard to kind of get the money out from the customer if you are into the service delivery space. Specifically, if you're a smaller company, it's very hard. So do you see a future again for smaller companies in the management consulting space, or do you how do you define that?
No, he's actually very good question, because I think all of us have come from a background where we have seen and actually worked on projects very heavy on the management consulting piece, and later on being implemented through a technology or an ERP solution. I think there is always the room for policies and procedures, but not something which is addressed by the technology. So like 10 years back, 20 years back, when we were doing large public sector projects in Pakistan, it was all about the BPR, the business process reengineering. I was myself part of various such
Yeah,
projects.
so many projects.
And but back then it made a lot of sense. Today, it's automatically been replaced by the IP built into the technology. So if somebody does a BPR today, uh, that's my view. It doesn't make sense, because that process reengineering is now captured into the newer versions of software and the technology, right? But then there are newer problems which are coming out of it, right? And that's where the management consulting will always be relevant. And let's say, for example, blockchain. Uh, we have come up with very few use cases so far, and everybody knows that the potential is way more than what we are doing. Probably this is something which will disrupt as much as the relational database is disrupted, for example. But how, to be honest, nobody knows at the moment. And I think that's where the management consulting is still, very relevant, because the technology, what technology is solving in the blockchain is a base framework, and is a one or two use cases, and that's about it. So as a technologist, if I have to implement blockchain, I am limited to the technology and to my imagination. But if I team up with a strong management consulting team, um, it's 1 and 1 11. That's what we say in Urdu. Ek aur ek
Mm,
gyara. So 1 and 1 11.
mm,
I think that potential is still there, but not for the problems that have been solved. I think that will be a waste of time and resources.
okay, okay, wisely put. Riz, do you have the same kind of comments on this particular question, or do you have a slightly different view?
So I think I have the same type of view for definite. I think companies will always need management consulting, right? So if it's not in the product area, then it's definitely in innovation, providing hand-holding services to these large corporations. This is something that will always be required, and this is something that I'm seeing more of now. Is there's so much innovation and so many ideas, and I'm thinking about, especially with Pakistan, and the Middle East, where there's a large community of expats. The innovation that they are forced to do because of the limited resources they have is unbelievable. And so they have a creative brain to start with, right? Because they've been forced down that route. And so I think innovation is an area, along with the sort of areas like blockchain, that really are somewhere where management consulting, it's an unknown area, huh? And it's something that we can really, really tap
Correct.
into unbelievably. So.
No, actually, I was speaking to some of the finest brains of blockchain and AI, Zishan Usmani, yani mashallah, one of the the greatest minds, I would say, produced by Pakistan in the space. And he has been actually speaking about a number of opportunities within the AI to the machine learning space, and the lack of actually skill set which is widespread. So he was speaking to something like I think he was saying that 200,000 opportunities exist, whereas only 30 to 35% of the population actually has the skill set to kind of serve that level of requirement which is there. So obviously this is growing as we speak. Now, Ahsen, again, coming back to the entrepreneurship and for the people who want to do a startup or from a technology side, from a technology perspective at large, but specifically from an ERP or a cloud space, uh, can you tell us a little bit about how did you start Keystone? What was your operating model? How did you come about? Exactly what did you do? How did you start up?
Right. So, Nohis, thank you. And Keystone was, in fact, my second is in fact my second attempt towards entrepreneurship. I first had a failed attempt back in 2002, and that's the time when I had just done my CA, and I was already into ERPs for like 2 years, and that's where I started a consulting practice again around ERPs. And I could not last longer than 6 months, and I learned that it was way too early. So I would not say that from the audience, if there are students who are now entering into workforce, and if they want to start up, do a startup right away, I would not discourage them. But my view will be that, and that's my personal experience, that I closed down that shop, and then I worked in the industry for between 2003 and 2016. It's like 13, 14 years.
Mhm.
And I learned the trade, and I had the developed the network, the necessary network to be successful, and of course the financial resources. So all of that put together, uh, Keystone, as my second startup, is now 4 years young, and inshallah we are passed through the problem time, because if a company is open, if a shop is open 4 years, chances are it's going to get better and better. So that is one. The other thing is that some of us are quite comfortable with the work that we are doing. I was also comfortable with the value I was able to deliver to customers. Um, but I wanted to do more, and I wanted to develop a team who joins me, and then we enjoy working with each other, and we spend time in solving customers' problems, and along the way bring innovation to the whole thing. And I think my experience of past 4 years is that, besides we are a startup, just because we were able to distinguish ourselves with the concept, instead of working on premises, we decided we'll not do on premises at all. And it was a difficult decision 4 years back. Now there's a lot of understanding built around it, but 4 years back, you can imagine, we were getting more on-premise queries than the cloud queries, right? And cloud was being sold as a concept that it's better for you. It's the upcoming, and it was not complete, to be honest. 4 years back, not many applications were there available
Correct.
in the SaaS
Correct.
cloud.
Mhm.
But again, the reason we are where we are is because we were committed to the cause, and we were able to develop a team and bring a culture, not a fixate with not with a fixated mindset, but with a growth mindset. And to be honest, it's about the team end of the day. So my advice will be that do not be a lone ranger. Find like-minded people, your colleagues, your friends, and work together. And we'll pick from Riz's book that find your compassion, and work towards that. Do not fall prey to the competition. Try to distinguish. You can always distinguish. It's not a problem. You just have to think about it, apply your mind, and most of all, learn the trade first. So you have to be really deep into what you are doing. For example, and speaking of technology, I mean, you can be very deep in 3 to 5 years. You can be a master. You can be a guru in that technology. So we have touched upon various technologies. A 22 years old kid who does, come into the workforce by 27. You can be a guru in a technology, and you can start the startup by the age 30 or 35, and you can be pretty successful and maybe early retire, all those things that you want to achieve. But the key is to go very deep. That's where there is no competition. Most of the people, most of the competition you will face at the surface are a little, beneath that point. But if you go deep, there is no competition.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Thanks, Ahsen, for that. Riz, coming to you, I understand that both Oracle and SAP, they actually partner with academia, like universities and colleges, as part of their, strategies for expanding not only their kind of student base, but also obviously to train the new students. Where do you see, again, the role of universities and academia in the promotion of the ERP and consulting space? Because, specifically, if I look at Pakistan or the Middle East, not a lot has happened, really. So where do you see the opportunity there?
It's quite heartbreaking. So this time last year, I was on a tour in Pakistan, and I went to the wonderful city of Lahore and also Islamabad, and I went to many universities to give lectures to IT students that were doing. Some of them were doing masters, others were doing the bachelors. The first question I ask is, raise your hands of those that have heard of SAP. And I was heartbroken. This is the third largest. Yeah, you beat us, Ahsen. They knew Oracle, but they didn't know us. So we got beat on that one. The issue here is that I have a personal view on this, and that is that the universities and the academia, they're still teaching C++. They're still teaching
irrelevant technologies.
Someone come to me and said that they were learning something. I can't even remember. It was like from the 80s. And I was like, wow. And what about cloud? So what's that? So I am really heartbroken about these things, and there's a huge gap. There's a huge gap. These people, again, the knowledge that I have a relative of mine that only learned it in PHP, and the things that he's done with PHP has been amazing, right? And Java and these type of things. So this is what the colleges are training, but no one's teaching them AI. No one's teaching them any of the technology we've been talking about. I was honestly, when I said put your hands up, and when I said to them, okay, how many of you know what blockchain means? How many, as is my style, hands, I started telling them off and saying, what are you guys doing? At least go online, do this. And so there's a huge difference. And so this is Ahsen's role, this is my role, Nokhez, this is your role, is to beat this drum, to say, there is a world out there that we can really, really leverage. The whole world has accepted it, right? So you go to Argentina, you go to South America, you go all of these countries, they've all got offshore centers, and they're all offering some sort of service, or and we're not, huh?
No, I'm with you. I'm actually with you, and that is the reason. To be honest with you, if you look at the latest kind of trend now, and this is actually, this is now our 5th show on this entrepreneurship topic, and we have, mashallah, we've had the likes of Dr. Shahid Qureshi from IBA. We have other people from IBA. Next week, we are getting, mashallah, the biggest mind on Islamic economics, Dr. Asad Zaman, a Stanford graduate. So he's coming next week. So, mashallah, the point I'm trying to make is that what we have been actually, I think all of us have been agreeing to, that the universities and colleges are not really preparing the students for what is, what is to come. And that is the reason, Ahsen, if I come to you now with this last question, before we go to kind of the audience question and answers, is that now Google obviously has come up with its own certification, and they're saying we are ready to accept non-university graduates. Yeah, and this is now a slap on the face, to be honest, of the universities, to say, guys, we are not going to be considering you any longer. And again, my kids are kind of in the O levels and A levels, and I think same is the case with you. And to be honest with you, I am not foreseeing them doing university degrees from that perspective. I would rather make them skillful, learn something, and start up something, afresh, rather than doing a 4-year degree, 2 years master's, and a 3-year PhD, and at the end of the day, come out with nothing really. So I don't know. I mean, Ahsen, I'm just ranting, but yeah. So what is your view?
To be honest, it's not very different, Nohes, with what Riz just mentioned and what you just shared. But I think it needs that connection between the academia and the industry. I got the opportunity to work with local universities in Pakistan, in Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh also. And I was also stunned to see the kind of technology that they were teaching. And so I'm talking 2010 and 11. And that's where we started with a Oracle-backed academy program. And we signed up these universities, and then we worked with these universities. But you can imagine the kind of impact that we wanted to create was not possible because, we were just one of the players out there. And as a result, what has happened is that universities are, and even schools and colleges are no longer, that relevant from a market standpoint. Also because we are a startup, so we keep hiring, and we have an internship program. So we keep hiring fresh grads. And the first thing we go about them while taking them on board is that we give them a view of the kind of work that we do, the technologies that we work on, and it really opens their eyes because they haven't been exposed to that in the universities. And even I'm talking about one of the finest universities in the country. So it needs for more connection, and I think the problem is that people in the academia, not the people in the academia, but the content in the academia is a little dated, and industry has moved on, but industry has not invested back into the academia. And as much as I wanted to do it, we were not able to do a lot of impact. I see SAP Academy, Microsoft, Cisco's, all of them working. IBM as a major program working with universities. But I think while those licensed softwares are there, the cloud services are there, teaching content is there, but I think it's still not to the level where it should be. Rather, there's a huge gap between what academia does and what the industry wants. That's how it needs to be. I think that needs top brains, that needs a lot of backing from the government. Top dollars need to be invested in that area. And before I conclude, similar to that, what we once did with the government of Punjab, and I was part of Oracle back then, that we came up with a certification program, and the government of Punjab actually funded that to the 80%. So as a result, we were able to train around 300 people. Some of them were already working in the Oracle environment. Some of them were Oracle users. Some were actually fresh students. So all of that put together, we were able to train and certify close to 300 people. That is something that had an impact. But that actually meant, so if I compare that project, that was a for-profit, of course, highly discounted, but for-profit project versus the CSR project. I think this is what had an impact because top dollars were spent. It was run as a business. So I think we need to really rethink about the whole CSR aspects.
Okay. No, Jazakallah khair. I think that kind of that was the last question, which was from our perspective. Now let's actually go to some comments and questions from the audience. Now this is a fairly longish comment. I think this is we've kind of addressed this. Riz, this is kind of I think for you, and this is I think we've kind of discussed. I think one sister is mentioning this one area where she feels that the last year, kind of the final year project of a 4-year degree of the undergrad students, they need to have a chance to kind of learn in a real company environment. Yeah. So again, obviously, the organization you are representing, Riz, obviously you cannot make a call on that. But can you suggest something, if you want to suggest something to the higher ups at your organization?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we have a very comprehensive graduate program, intern program. We have all of these things, but it's not. There's only a limited number of seats, huh? And this is sometimes very difficult, especially when you're passionate about these things and you're really trying to get in there. So my advice would be keep knocking the doors, use a network. Are you on LinkedIn? I see two types of people on LinkedIn. I see people on LinkedIn that just go there and use it like Facebook, and just that's it. Or I see other people out there that promote themselves. So you're passionate in AI. You write about AI, you talk about AI, you find an article from Ahsen on AI and you publish it and make some commentary. And this is you build your own profile. And one of the biggest problems I found, tying everything back up from the universities and everything else, is people don't know how to sell themselves. And this is something that we need to do. And so I really think that if you are selling yourself, and if you came to me, me being the vice president, I see a profile that gives me everything and I'm passionate about AI, I will take you before I will take the other people that have no experience. Ahsen, would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Hands down. There's no issue.
No different. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. If you're talking about IBM's AI technology, they'll snap you up. This is what you need to do. And again, use me, use Ahsen, use Noha. Come to us. We can also help you and guide you and tell you which ways to go in this. And I think this is the best way to do. Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. And this is a question for you, Ahsen. How to address the concern that SaaS solution compromises industry flavor, deeper specific requirements?
Thank you, Zulfikar. Well, it depends, and if you look at you really have to look at the right fitment here. For example, if you are a large enterprise versus a mid-size organization, you should really go for solutions like S/4HANA Cloud or Fusion Cloud. Then the Microsoft and NetSuite and Backpack, and these are more towards the tier 2 solutions. So that is one way to address the question at hand. The other area is that while it's a SaaS, there's a lot of rich functionality built into it. And the problem at hand can be solved first by the right fitment of the product, second by a good smart consulting partner. That's where the real IP kicks in. Now that partner will either use the standard functionality to deliver what is required, or they will use a workaround within the standard functionality, or they will customize it. So while customization has always been a bad word, and in SaaS by design you cannot customize within the SaaS environment, but then there are ways to add on PaaS to the SaaS environment and then do the relevant customizations. Now those PaaS and technology has evolved, it does an auto upgrade with the SaaS upgrade. So because the key promise of SaaS is an auto upgrade, right? And the fact that if you are a SaaS customer, you are always current. So all the new technology, for example, IoT is available to you. Same license is available to you with the upgrade, right? If you do A-light PaaS customization or personalization or extension or integration, that will auto upgrade. But if you think about it from an on-premise standpoint, then you won't be able to digest it. But really looking at the cloud technologies, if there are any industry flavors which are not there, for example, secondary sales for pharmaceutical companies, for example, it's a very important feature for them because of the expiry and the relevant legislation, right? And SaaS will not take care of that. There is no such functionality, but that will need to be built into SaaS, and then that will auto.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Kind of the last question, which I always ask, my guests, how do you, Riz, deal with the pressures on family life with the kind of the routine, obviously, working in a technology company?
Unbearable. Just really, it's tough. It's not easy, huh? And I always say to everybody, there are three things: go and fail, right? And this puts a lot of pressure on you, and we're always afraid of failing. Don't be greedy. So if you work on your own, you're only gonna, and if you've got one partner, you're only going to share an apple. But if you work with a partner, you're going to get a watermelon, and half a watermelon is a lot bigger than half an apple. Right? And the other thing is, don't be arrogant. I've seen a lot of people in business with their arrogance and stuff. And you know what? I realize this impacts as well family life. I mean, even my own life now these days, I'm taking it a little bit more easier. It's not easy. You've got to put the effort in. You've got to be not afraid of failing, right? And that puts additional pressure on you, your family, your friends, everybody. And so I would say, love your family, go fail. From that, you'll make some amazing experiences, and you'll be brilliant at whatever you do, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Ahsen, I know, mashallah, you are, if anyone wants to learn how to manage time, I think learn it from Ahsen. So Ahsen.
I'm totally in agreement with Riz, I think while there are work-life balance is an issue, but I think it can be managed. For past 4 years, I'm running Keystone, and before that, I used to travel a lot because in Keystone we are still very focused on Pakistan, so I don't travel that much. But as part of Oracle, I was traveling like 50% of my time. So I completely understand what Riz is talking about, because that's a life I lived for 9 years. So I completely understand that. But I still feel that that work-life balance can be achieved. Somehow I have been able to manage, Alhamdulillah. I don't know how, but but it works. I think end of the day it works. Plus, family is very supportive. And if you look at the kind of pressures and the kind of pressures that Rasulullah had, that Sahaba had, and the mission that they were on, and they were also able to do a wonderful work-life balance. And the kind of work that we do is nowhere near that. The responsibility which is there. So I think I will totally top up Riz's point. The time is the biggest asset that one has. It's not the money or the beauty or something else. I think it's the time that we should be conscious of, and can be managed. One can manage it.
Okay, I wish both of you the best in managing the time, inshallah. So Jazakallah khair, Riz, mashallah. I think Jazakallah khair for your contributions. Ahsen, very, very wise, I think, comments from both the guests, mashallah. And for the audience, next week, inshallah, we are going to be having, like I mentioned, a session purely on Islamic economics, which is going to be dealing not only from an economic side and the social welfare side of Islamic economics, but also we'll be discussing a little bit on the capital funding for startups. How do you raise finance for startups from an Islamic perspective? We won't be going a lot into detail on that particular topic, but inshallah, So see you next week, all of you. Jazakallah khair once again to Riz. Honored to have you. Ahsen, honored to have you. And inshallah, hope to see both of you very soon. So inshallah, see you guys, all the audience next week. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.